Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to your favorite news destination. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi. On the 12th of February, just 48 hours from now, Bangladesh goes to vote. But for us back at home, is this more about democracy at our neighbor, or is this about stability back at home? Let's check it out. Well, tonight we turn our focus to a neighbor at a crossroads. In less than 48 hours, Bangladesh heads to its most consequential election in decades. This isn't just a change of guard, it's the first real test of a nation that only months ago saw a student-led uprising that toppled a 15-year-old regime. This comes after the 2024 uprising that ousted Sheikh Hasina, and with that, the Awami League. And now that Awami League is out of the picture, the main contest for this election is between the BNP, led by Tariq Rahman, and the Jamaat-e-Islami coalition. Let's break down what the latest surveys are telling us. Take a look at this. First, the EASD survey predicts a landslide for the BNP, with them projected to win 208 seats and the Jamaat getting 46. That's well above the majority mark of 151 seats needed to form the government. But the IILD survey paints a different picture, showing a neck-and-neck race where Jamaat edges out with 105 seats and the BNP at 101, both short of a majority. Then there's the NRC survey, which forecasts a sweep for the BNP at 220 seats against the Jamaat's 57. And these varying projections highlight how unpredictable this election could be, with undecided voters and youth turnout likely to decide the outcome. And as we look at the build-up to these polls, tensions are running high. There have been over 74 deaths in internal clashes within the BNP since August 2024. And vigilantism is on the rise again. Attacks on Hindus and other minorities have drawn global concern, and women are protesting the low representation, with fewer than 4% of candidates being females. On the campaign trail, massive rallies have filled Dhaka streets before the code of conduct came into place. Tariq Rahman of the BNP is expressing confidence in victory and ruling out any alliance with Jamaat. Jamaat is emphasizing its anti-corruption stance, with the student-led NCP that is contesting 30 seats and calls for an Awami boycott that haven't gained much traction. But for the election itself, more than 9 lakh polling staff are deployed, and European Union observers are meeting with party leaders to ensure fairness during these elections. Fears of rigging are low, but risks of protests, of roadblocks and tensions from Islamist groups, they certainly remain high. And in the broader context, Bangladesh is dealing with inflation at 8.58%, and corruption is the top concern for these voters. Strikes are disrupting daily life, and major powers like India, China and the United States are watching closely. Let's also talk about the kingmaker in all of this. That's right, the Gen Z. 56 million young voters, nearly 44% of the total electorate, are the backbone of this transition. They are the ones who ended the status quo, yet they remain skeptical of the quote-unquote old guard. And whilst the BNP and the Jamaat weave for their loyalty, the youth are focused on a very different trio of priorities. We're talking about jobs, an end to corruption, and a functioning democracy. There's a fear that power will revert to traditional brokers despite the youth mandate. And if reforms stall after the vote, Gen Z could shift their pressure from the ballot box back to the streets. But then again, for India, the outcome is critical. A BNP victory might mean a return to assertive diplomacy on issues like Teesta water sharing, but there is a hope for a pragmatic Bangladesh-first trade relationship. However, a surge in Jamaat's influence brings a different set of concerns, ranging from closer ties with Islamabad to the potential for increased radicalization near India's borders. An esteemed set of panelists that's waiting for us right on the other side, and the big questions that we are asking tonight. How will India navigate a possible shift in Dhaka's alliances, especially if Jamaat plays a bigger role? And can BNP or Jamaat speak for 2024's youth? Or will the streets erupt again if the old guard returns? What are the big implications for India? With us on the broadcast here, Ambassador Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. Many thanks for taking out the time, madam. And with us, Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhary, editor, Blitz Bangladesh, joining us live from Dhaka. For a foreign affairs expert, we've got Pathikrit Pai, foreign affairs expert, who's with us on the broadcast. Ambassador, for nearly 15 years, India has enjoyed this strategic comfort under Sheikh Hasina. And with the Awami League now pretty much out of the equation, are we now entering an era of strategic uncertainty with Bangladesh? What should the South Bloc essentially be focusing on? If a BNP or a Jamaat-backed government does come to the helm of affairs, what are the immediate pressure points that we as a neighbor need to be careful of? We talk about border security, about 4,000 kilometers of shared border, northeast insurgency, water sharing disputes. What worries the South Bloc the most, and how are you looking at these developments 48 hours to these elections finally?
Well, I think first of all, I have to somewhat question two of items of what you said. First, you said that the Gen Z has won out. Actually, the Gen Z did not stage the uprising. It was a regime change operation planned far away from Gen Z in chancelleries, which began in the West. Then they chose Pakistan to conduct it, and Pakistan worked with Jamaat-e-Islami. So what really has happened in the last 18 months since Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was ousted was that the Jamaat-e-Islami has been in power. They have been the power behind the throne for 18 months now. And they have guided Muhammad Yunus as more or less their spokesperson. He's been doing whatever they want him to do. And we have to also recognize that even the National Citizens Party, the NCP, which claims to be the party representing the revolution, it has no support. It has no support at all. It just shows that it was not a Gen Z uprising. And even in Dhaka University, when student union elections were held, it was not this NCP party which won. They were nowhere on the scene. It was again the Jamaat-e-Islami's youth wing, Islamic Chhatra Shibir, who won those elections through their proxy organizations. And so they are ruling the roost even in the universities. So really, the first thing is that the situation in Bangladesh today has been under the control of the Jamaat-e-Islami for the last 18 months, and they have brought Pakistan very much into the picture in Bangladesh. Pakistan is trying to revive the pre-1971 linkages between West Pakistan and the then East Pakistan. The second point is that Awami League hasn't disappeared. Awami League is very much there. Awami League's 35-40% vote bank is completely intact. They have been banned from, the activities have been banned. They're not being allowed to participate in the elections day after tomorrow, but that's unconstitutional. There's no reason why the Awami League should have been banned. I mean, in Nepal, Oli Sharma government was deposed, but his party has not been banned from the March elections. In Sri Lanka, the Rajapaksa government was deposed. His party was not banned from participating in the elections. So, I mean, this is just a political decision taken because I think the Jamaat-e-Islami is trying its best to form a unique government on their own. They're trying very hard, but whether it will happen or not is something that is not yet quite clear. It is true that the opinion surveys that you have shown show, on the one hand, an even-handedness between the Jamaat-led 11-party alliance and the BNP-led alliance. And on the other hand, you've shown the other survey, which showing 208 seats for BNP. But that, I don't give any credence to that survey because it is based on the assumption that 80% of Awami League will vote for BNP and all the women will vote for BNP. So the situation actually is very nuanced in Bangladesh right now. And my hunch is that the powers that be, because, as I said, Jamaat-e-Islami controlling Dr. Muhammad Yunus, and behind Jamaat-e-Islami Pakistan, and behind Pakistan, the Western powers, they're going to try and form a national consensus government, which has been on the cards since June of last year. And, they're going to bring together the BNP and the Jamaat-e-Islami. And Yunus wants to stay on. Yunus does not want to go anywhere. And I think the third point we have to look at is a referendum. Because a referendum, again, is another completely unconstitutional, illegitimate act. There is no provision for a referendum in the constitution. And the interim regime, even though that was completely unconstitutional, but the interim regime has no authority to delve into the changing of the constitution, delve into these kind of reforms. They are supposed to be there for 90 days and hold elections and maintain law and order till the elections are held. That's about it. So, this whole question about wanting that rest referendum, and it is very dangerous, because I understand, and maybe Mr. Chaudhary will tell us some more about this, but I
Yeah.
understand that in the ballot papers for the referendum, there are no numbering. So actually, these ballot papers are completely fake. Any number can be printed. There is no numbering at all. So I think we have to focus on the irregularities of this election. That is vital. If we are going to understand what to do afterwards, we have to focus on what is going wrong right now.
All
And I
right.
can tell you, if a lot of things go wrong now, the violence will be back on the streets.
Okay, many thanks for your opening submissions, ma'am. Let's bring in Mr. Shoaib Chaudhary. Maybe he can throw some light on that. This is Bangladesh's first election after that Gen Z-led uprising, but Ambassador made it quite clear that it was completely usurped by the Jamaat and the Islamist, ideologue. But it unseated a sitting prime minister. How different does the mood on the ground feel compared to past elections, sir? What's the mood on the ground? Do young voters see this election as a break from dynastic politics, or, like Ambassador put it, violence will soon return to the streets? How do you look at these developments?
Thank you very much, sir. First of all, I absolutely and fully agree with Her Excellency that in 2024, what happened, it was not Gen Z, whatever. It was a coup, Islamist coup, orchestrated by the jihadists and Islamists and Jamaat-e-Islami, including Al-Qaeda. And now, when you were talking about the Gen Z voters, I mean, the voters who are going to vote for the first time in their life the day after tomorrow, I have spoken to at least 150 youngsters who are going to vote for the first time.
Yeah.
And they say they're absolutely and totally frustrated with the madness of the Islamists in this country for the last 18 months. They are frustrated because of the economy is in extremely bad shape. 10 million people became jobless, no prospect for new job, and many countries are shutting down doors for Bangladeshis in getting visas. Our students cannot even go to many countries to study because Bangladesh has been portrayed in the last 18 months as a country of chaos and terrorism. So these youngsters I have spoken at 150, they say they are going to vote for BNP, not Jamaat, because they want to get out of this vicious atmosphere, number one. Number two, for Yunus and Jamaat Islami, it is a challenge of remaining in power. And Yunus will play all the cards to remain in power. And one of the strongest cards is the referendum, where Her Excellency also mentioned that in the voting, in the ballot paper of the referendum, there is no serial number. So Yunus has made his mind what will be the outcome of the referendum. Now about the surveys and polls that you have been also showing.
Yeah.
These are surveys mostly conducted by organizations funded by BNP or Jamaat or Yunus. But ground reality, I can tell you that if the day after tomorrow's election is free and fair, BNP will get at least 250 plus seats. Because in the history of Bangladesh, from 1972 to 2024, Jamaat-e-Islami never got more than 10 seats. And there is no question that Jamaat suddenly became so popular that they will get even 30 seats. No, people are not going to vote for Jamaat. And most importantly, 35% of the voters who were belonging to Awami League and leftist and secularist parties, although Awami League is calling on them to refrain from voting, but they will vote. And they will this time vote for a party which is against Jamaat Islami. So I can only say the day after tomorrow, the voting will be a mass revolt against the Islamists, jihadists, and the mercenaries of the Western interest groups.
Well, very interesting. Mr. Chaudhary, we're going to come back to you. Pathakrit, you've heard the ambassador, you've heard the editor of the Blitz magazine as well. What do you make of these developments? 250 seats to the BNP. That's what Mr. Salahuddin just said. So what do you make of that? What does that mean for India? International observers are calling it the largest democratic exercise of 2026, at least so far.
Well, it's always better to have a democratically elected government than to have an NGO-driven one. So for India, even though it's not going to be very, very easy, There will be challenges, but I think it's still better to deal with the BNP than to deal with an NGO-driven organization. Secondly, I think most, if not entirely, the Awami League supporters might tilt towards BNP. There was a large section of young women who were part of that student movement. They got disillusioned when NCP actually, joined hand with Jamaat. That actually exposed what NCP essentially was and what actually the plot was all about, which Ambassador Sikri mentioned. And therefore, if you look at what would happen, look, number one, violence never went away from the streets of Bangladesh. If you see what has happened in the last 1.5 years, it was not a serene scenario. It was extremely chaotic. A country where the police forces are scared to take action for fear of prosecution and persecution, and a country where the army has no option but to be on the road to manage traffic and law and order. That shows the reality of the situation. If you and when it comes to the present chief advisor or whatever you call that man, in all likelihood, whoever comes to power, Yunus will ensure that he becomes a president, and therefore he remains immune. The problem is what happens to the other iconic figures who are, the Western media hyped them up as the next big thing to happen in the world, as if Nahid Islam, Hasnat Abdullah, Asif Mahmood, Sarjis Alam, there are allegations. Many of them either have taken a foreign passport or already have a long-term visa elsewhere. There was a social media chatter about Nahid Islam having taken a passport of a country called Dominican Republic. Now, why would you do that if you have done an iconic revolution in your country? Why would you do that?
That's a very good point.
That shows the kind of hollowness of that movement, and therefore whoever comes, violence is a given because Bangladesh has a history of cycle of violence from 1971 to 1975 to 1980s. You see every 5 to 10 years there is a pattern of whoever is not in power already. I always have a backup plan to run away. But I think I would still say, in spite of challenges, it is always better to have a BNP as an elected government in power than to have a government which is perhaps being run from Washington. On the economic front, please look at what Yunus did in terms of the trade framework agreement with United States. That was agreed upon yesterday. The kind of concessions that United States has extracted from Bangladesh under an interim government, which I don't know whether it has the mandate to deal with something as profound as a trade deal. And what happens after that is a very big question mark, about Bangladesh and its already sinking economic situation. Let me say my last point. Whoever comes to power, when they were on opposition, they had an anti-India stand they had to take. The moment they come to power, you would see they would at least start engaging with government of India more seriously than Yunus, because Yunus came here to do a job. He didn't come here to manage or run Bangladesh. So I think there will be challenges. We should not think that situation is going to be serene or much better. There will be problems. But I think, as I stated, it is better to have an elected government than to have these elements.
All right. We hear you. Madam Ambassador, what do you make of those points? Anti-India sentiment, it has visibly risen since 2024, but like Pathikrit put it out there, a democratically elected dispensation will take, trade negotiations a little more seriously with India, bilateral agreements a little more seriously. But we've seen attacks on minorities and the real gruesome kinds. How much of that is political mobilization as well, and how much of that will actually translate into anti-India policy, or vice versa, or against it, the opposing factor? What do you think is going to happen in the first 100 days of this new government?
Well, first of all, I think we should listen very carefully to what Mr. Salahuddin Chaudhry said. He said, if the elections are free and fair, then BNP will get 200 plus seats. But then the elections are not free and fair, because Jamaat-e-Islami, behind the scenes, the power behind the throne for the last 18 months, has spent the last 18 months doing vote engineering. And in fact, there is, even in Dhaka, for example, there are allegations, and in fact, Tariq Rahman has complained to the Election Commission that something like 15 lakh additional names have come into the voter list. And there are examples of, families of 4 who were expecting 4 voter slips have got 41 voter slips. So, that there are all these new names, things coming in. So I do not know what impact they're going to have on the voting results as and when they
Fair
are
enough.
declared. So, and then, there's this whole, as I told you, of course, the referendum has no numbering. So that's a given that it's going to be a yes. And even here, with additional ballot papers being printed at the Jamaat-e-Islami printing presses, all this is coming in the social media. And there's going to be a huge number of vote stuffing of the electoral boxes, which happens at every election in Bangladesh. But the point is, this is it. I don't think we can be sanguine about the results right now, given the extensive nature of the vote engineering that has gone on, particularly in the last 8 to 10 weeks, but even before that. So I think this is what we have to wait and see, and that is why I feel that finally they will be forced into a kind of national consensus government, which will have both. I mean, Tariq Rahman may well become the prime minister, but the formula which is there for this national consensus government is that Dr. Yunus will be the president. That's the point of the yes referendum, that he becomes the president, because under the yes referendum, the president gets additional powers. It's much more like a presidential form of government that is envisaged than the earlier parliamentary democracy.
He looked quite confident in his recent speech this evening as well.
Yes, well, he's sure, because he's sure of the yes vote, because there are no numbers. He can print as many as he likes and show the yes answers. And so if he's the president, even if Tariq Rahman is the prime minister, you have the likelihood of the Amir of Jamaat-e-Islami being the deputy prime minister.
So, Ambassador, you're saying the chances of chaos descending upon the streets are very likely 48 hours from now?
Yeah, people may or may not accept that result. I mean, certainly even BNP may not accept the result, because as we have seen, Tariq Rahman is very confident, and he has said, I don't want to join a coalition, government, I will do it on my own. But we know that the kind of pressure Tariq Rahman is under. To give you a small example, he was campaigning for the no vote in the referendum all this while. And then suddenly in the last 4 or 5 days, he changed because of pressure from the Jamaat-e-Islami, from Pakistan, because he's been very close to all these players. Been very close to Pakistan for 17 years while he was living in London, very close to Jamaat-e-Islami, because they were his alliance partners when they were in government between 2001 2006, very close to the USA. So all that pressure, and within a day, he changed from a no vote in the referendum campaigning to for a yes vote campaigning that he was doing. So that is what all these things make me think, that the outcome is by no means clear or certain. We wait till day after tomorrow evening.
All right, Ambassador. All right. You know what, Mr. Salahuddin Chaudhary? Both major camps, in a hypothetical situation where these elections are free and fair, both major camps have promised welfare schemes. They've promised cash transfers. People are talking about how this is very India-oriented, Desi Yojana look-alike. But is it resonating with the voters on the ground? The freebies and the freebie politics?
You see, Tariq Rahman is presenting his policies, considering him as the prime minister. But Yunus is plotting something else. Through the referendum, he wants to become the supreme leader, where Tariq Rahman will become a prime minister, like a prime minister in Iran or prime minister in North Korea. And Yunus wants to do either this way, or Yunus will absolutely manipulate and rig the election and ultimately make Jamaat the winner, victor. If that happens, take my words for granted that from the 13th of February evening, Bangladesh will turn into battleground. Because in that case, if Jamaat manipulates the election, and they will, if Jamaat rigs the election, they will, if Yunus does anything wrong with the election, and he will, then BNP's 40 million people, 40 million voters, and they will join hands with the 40 million Awami League voters, and they will come on the street, and that will be the doomsday for the Islamists in this country.
Well,
I can tell you, guarantee that Bangladesh is going to witness a massive bloodshed, a massive revolt, because if the Islamists make a single attempt of remaining in power, there will be a massive revolt. And as I have already explained to you, that the Gen Zs and younger generation, they are already fed up. And
yeah, they're frustrated is what you said. That's the word you used. They said, you said they're frustrated.
Yes, and also please remember that women voters are more than 50%. So now women are worried that whether they are going to be enslaved from the 13th of February or they will enjoy the liberty.
That's another pertinent point. That's another pertinent point. I've completely run out of time here. Pathikrit, final 30 seconds to you. Do you think bloodshed is inevitable, like Mr. Salahuddin Chaudhary put it? And what do you think? How is Islamabad viewing these developments?
Well, I completely agree that there will be huge violence. For India, it is very clear. Treat the Bangladesh border as you treat the Pakistan border. There might be civilizational, cultural connect that we have with Bangladesh, but if you have to have good relation with Bangladesh, you need to have a zero tolerance approach towards the border. Otherwise, given the kind of elements that have flown down from Pakistan into Bangladesh, today or tomorrow, somebody will plot something inside India from Bangladesh. That's something Asim Munir had announced when he was in Florida, that the next attack on India would be from east. So we have to be very careful about the border. We cannot take the border as a soft border anymore. Otherwise, something bad is only going to happen.
4,000 kilometers of shared border. 4,000 kilometers of shared border. That's a long shared border. Let's leave it at that. And like Ambassador Sikri put it, we'll have to wait and find out. On that note, Ambassador, many thanks for taking out the time. Mr. Chaudhary, always a pleasure to have you here on News 9. And Pathikrit, many thanks for joining us here. All right then, on February 12th, Bangladesh will choose its next government. And for India, the choice may decide something bigger. Is our neighbor going to be a reliable partner, or is it going to become a problem for us? Well, we'll have to wait and find out. A quick commercial breather. Our second segment right on the other side.
वकील साहब, अच्छी खासी प्रैक्टिस है, नया फील्ड में क्यों जाना?
सिस्टर, देश का सोच रहे
और इसके फ्यूचर का नहीं सोच रहे।
SBI लाइफ से अपनी बेटी का फ्यूचर सिक्योर है।
तभी तो इनको अपने इरादे पूरे करने का राइट है।
करो पूरे अपने इरादे,
अपनों से किए सभी वादे।
SBI लाइफ अपने लिए,
अपनों के लिए।
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
Every champion's journey starts with second thoughts.
क्या हुआ?
Till they see it's possible and there is someone who truly believes in them.
एक दिन बहुत बड़ा आदमी बनना है ना?
Orchids, the international school, raising 85,000 champions across India.
Our second segment on In Your Interest. We're talking about 3 adults, all dead, inside a single car. And here's the spooky part. There's no signs of struggle. Somewhere between belief and obedience, it seems like something went terribly wrong. Let's break this down. We're going to look at a disturbing pattern of tragedy that seems to be repeating itself across the heart of North India. In the last 48 hours, 2 separate incidents, one in the capital and one in Mathura, have left 8 people dead, with the needle of suspicion pointing towards a dark and dangerous intersection of desperation and the occult. In West Delhi, a routine afternoon turned into a horror scene near the Piragadi flyover. On the 8th of February, 3 people, 2 men and a woman, were found motionless inside a locked car. Whilst there were no external injuries, police found liquor bottles and used glasses. The two of the victims had vomited, suggesting a slow and painful poisoning. But the most chilling clue didn't come from the car. It came from the CCTV footage. It shows the victims meeting with a self-styled tantric earlier that day, a god man. That man and his associate are now in custody as investigators try to determine if this was a suicide pact or a calculated murder disguised as a ritual. Even as Delhi grapples with these questions, a similar tragedy has surfaced in Mathura. 5 members of a single family, a husband, wife, and their 3 children, were found dead in what appears to be a mass suicide. A note left on a wall and a final video claimed that the act was voluntary, but neighbors and local reports point to a familiar catalyst: the family's link to tantric practices. The UP police have already made an arrest, but for this family, the intervention, well, it came a little too late. These are not isolated events. They are echoes of a grim history. From the 2018 Burari deaths that shocked the nation to the human sacrifices of Bihar and the witchcraft-related killings that have claimed over 2,500 lives in recent decades, the shadow of superstition remains long and strong. Despite our digital leaps and economic growth, a silent crisis of occult influence continues to claim lives in the shadows of our cities. Big questions that we're trying to decode. Why does the law find it so difficult to prosecute self-styled tantrics and occultists before a tragedy finally occurs? And what drives well-to-do families like those in Burari or the property dealers in the Piragadi case that we're talking about to surrender their lives and logic to a single individual? Is this a failure of our mental health support system? Well, to talk more on this, Dr. Deepak Raheja, senior psychiatrist and DIR Hope Care India. We also have with us Dilip Cherian, brand guru and founder of Perfect Relations and Image Group. Ellen Rao, former Delhi top cop, with us here on the broadcast as well. Mr. Cherian, let's get the snowball rolling with you. This story is so unsettling, it's spooky rather, not just because of the death, but because of belief that's involved in this. Does this remind you of Burari as well? Faith quietly overpowering reason that's seeping into ordinary lives. What do you make of these 2 cases from Mathura and Piragadi today?
My sense of it is that this is an increasing trend in our urban centers. Whether it is faith, whether it is a belief in some other kind of means of achieving what you want, or the impact of the kind of stuff that is circulating and the I don't want to call it copycat crimes, but the fact that there is access to a lot more of this kind of belief system is really one of the factors that is perhaps uncharted in semi-urban and urban India today. These are people who have access to a lot of bandwidth and many of them are not even fully employed. So the space for this kind of mental obsession with stuff which is either not explained or is a route to quick success or revenge or whatever it is driving people in this direction. It's a familiar story, and unfortunately and sadly, we will see more of this rather than less of it as the days go by.
All right. DCP Rao, 3 adults, no forced injuries, no signs of struggle, poisoned, the poison that was shared inside a car. And at what point in a case like this do you stop talking about suicide and start, investigating possible murder and homicide? How do you look at it from the probe and investigation angle?
Good evening to you, to all your viewers and co-panelists. Definitely, this is a very serious case. Just like Burari suicide of 11 people there in a family. Now, it is all to be looked into by the police during investigation, but apparently it doesn't seem to be a suicide. Maybe somebody might have given poison to them, and or maybe some reasons has to be found out. That motive of this, either suicide or murder, that is also to be established. But it's it's too early to say whatever is maybe the reason. But definitely, during investigation, police will definitely find out the main reason. And after postmortem of these bodies, definitely it will also be, because in such type of cases, autopsy report is very important, crucial evidence.
The viscera findings are very important in this case.
Very important finding, yes.
So DCP Rao, you know, the car was parked for nearly an hour before somebody noticed the three motionless bodies inside it. From your own expertise and your own investigator's lens, what do you think could have happened in that 1 hour? We found 3 liquor bottles, you had disposable glasses, there were signs of vomiting and puking as well.
Maybe because of some overdose of the this whiskey, maybe the reason. And you might have seen that so many other incidents, in cases where the bodies are found inside the car, maybe some gastric effects is also there, maybe so many reasons. That is all to be, I think that FSL team might have reached at the spot to study all these facts and figures. And then it may be a suicide, it may be an accidental also, because if the car was closed from inside and they might be taking some liquor or something like that, the gastric coincidence might have been also suffocating those people. That is also maybe the reason. But all these things are to be revealed after autopsy of bodies, and before that we can only guess what could have been done. So to differentiate science
from superstition, we really need the viscera findings and we need the post-mortem and the autopsy over here. Dr. Raheja, you know, senior psychiatrist with us here on the broadcast. Take a look at both of these cases, right from Mathura to Piragadi, the tantric angle. And why do people really fall for godmen? These are well-to-do families. These are people who have enough members. This one gentleman who's now no more, his brother said 15-20 lakh rupees was not a problem. Somebody saw their 20-year-old newly married son lose their life. So these are not people who had instantly faced adversities. These are people who have faced challenges. What really happens? People hear tantric and then they assume blind faith.
So really what happens is, if you really look at it, it's a triad of vulnerability. There is distress, and in distress there is dependency on another human being, and that dependency eventually leads to authority manipulation. So what really happens is that when you are faced with a situation that's extremely distressing, that you feel is unattainable, out of your control, the mind has a tendency to shift to magical powers, magical thinking. And essentially you will find these tantrics having a demeanor where they will reflect, they will claim, they will convince you that they know it all. So it is a state of a magical belief, a magical hypnosis, which then leads to a coercive pattern of self-harm without being able to apply your mind. So, you know, you're blinded by a fog where the logical reasoning goes away, despite your education, despite your socioeconomic strata, despite those 15-20 lakhs not. And like I agree with what Mr. Cherian said, that belief that you want to achieve the unattainable, you know, you want to go walk that extra yard to be able to either take a revenge or to make that extra bucks, or so, you know, you are intrigued and you are driven to that magical thinking, hoping and believing that.
But what do you make of this case, Dr. Raheja? What do you make of this particular case? These are people who did not show those signs of, you know, emotional weakness. How soon can people who seem to be logically real find their reason and logic is in place, but they suddenly turn their obedience into, you know, self-harm?
It is a very defined process of psychological manipulation that happens by these godmen, these tantrics, and you are, before you realize, over a period, you are driven and you are caught in a web of a magical belief where you feel and see that person as an authority figure, and you don't realize how you are driven into that coercive pattern of magical belief, self-harm, not knowing the path you are going through. So it can happen instantly over a short period, or it can be a pattern where you are meeting the person, you have suggestions to believe that this person has powers that are
you know, Dr. Raheja, very quickly, how does one safeguard themselves from something like this, to all the viewers that are watching this?
I think it's very sad that we are moving towards a urban India and we fall prey to these. And again, I believe with what Mr. Cherian was saying, that these people have that void. They have made their bucks, but they are, like you said, we saw in this case, they are property dealers, so they don't have a full-time job. They don't have a full-time occupation. So it's very important to not be driven by those shortcuts. These are methods to believe that magics will happen overnight and riches will have overnight and you will be able to turn your take revenges overnight. I mean, nothing happens overnight. So it's very important that we walk the traditional path, go the shorter, easier, long way where we
pertinent points to all the viewers that are watching this at the moment. You know, Mr. Cherian, society is to blame here as well. I mean, we love our spooky mystery thrillers, but you know, the two men knowing each other, but the family did not know about the woman who was seated in the car as well. Then there was this Tantric Baba who the CCTV had caught. Why do cases involving godmen and death grip public imagination? I mean, even before facts become established, what is this fear that we as a collective society are really reacting to?
It is not so much fear as a kind of a visceral thrill. And this thrill is because people actually have belief in all this. What Dr. Raheja said is right, that this kind of conversion process from rational to fairly irrational can happen within weeks. You know, someone shows you some magical trick, which is out of some magic textbook, and you get completely taken in. And the process of beguiling them is quite quick. Of course, there are those who are in these mazes for a long time, but as rationalists, we should stick to what Mr. Rao said, wait for the autopsy report, see what actually happened, but there is no doubt that the phenomenon we are talking about is an urban phenomena, a new phenomena, and one that is actually growing very fast.
All right. DCP Rao, final word to you, final 30 seconds. You've already mentioned about the autopsy and the importance of the post-mortem autopsy and the viscera findings. What more should the police be on the lookout for here? I know they're brushing through CCTVs, but what else?
Definitely their previous conduct of this family and their what was going on in their mind, and definitely also with the godman's whatever the superstitions, that factor also is to be looked into by the police. Maybe because of some misinformation given by someone, some tantric sadhus like that, the family might have been taken away, driven away in that direction also. But that is also to be seen. But definitely police has to open all the angles open till the autopsy reports is coming, because viscera has also been reported to be preserved, and viscera report is also very important, whether there are toxin, some poisonous material in that or not.
So what was that poison essentially? That's going to give us more clues into what exactly was the poison, how much of it was consumed, how did they really get their hands on that poison? I mean, to really differentiate and separate science from fiction over here. But the fact is, like Dr. Raheja pointed out and Mr. Cherian said, you know, the occult traps, why do we keep on falling for them? And this new phenomenon, is it because of our voids? These are 3 people who were found dead. They met a god man. Hours later, they were dead in a parked car. Poison was found. CCTV places them with the Baba. And the cause of the death is still unknown. Let's hope for police to carry out a thorough investigation on this particular front. We're going to continue to track this story and developments. Mr. Cherian, Dr. Raheja, DCP Rao, always a pleasure to have you here with us on In Your Interest. All right, then. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of In Your Interest. We're going to see you again tomorrow. Top developments right on the other side.
Ever wondered what makes the night come alive? Where flavors, lights, and laughter dance in harmony. When the sun sets, stories rise. Of kitchens, cocktails, and charisma. What makes your city's night so happening? Let's find out.
Good service, good food, and a good location, you need to explore, you need to experiment.
But they will never forget how they felt when they came to your restaurant.
Being a chef, it's my priority to deliver taste in a plate with good presentation, unique innovation. My definition of mixology would be to get people drunk in a safe and happy way.
Don't drink on the job, that's for sure.
Mixology, you can play around with anything. You can create the stories, you can create the recipes.
Let's cheers on that note with our friendship.
Indulge in the finer things in life with Radico presents Lounge Nights. Discover the creme de la creme of India's culinary and nightlife scene. From trendy bars to exquisite restaurants, we've got you covered.